Good evening. The pilot who survived the mid-air crash over Milford Sound 6 months ago, in which 7 people died, has been cleared of any blame. There's no basis for any charges against 25-year-old Paul Wardenberg of Queenstown, according to a civil aviation investigation. Kathy Garrion reports.
These dramatic pictures were taken by a tourist on board his plane. They show the last crucial seconds as the second plane comes into sight. As the planes hit, the camera falls into the tourist's lap. The second plane plunged into the fjord, killing everyone on board. Paul Wardenberg managed to land his plane safely. An air accident report's due out in a couple of months. Meanwhile, the air accident investigation into the Mount Aspiring crash last August, in which 10 people died, is continuing. Inspector David Graham has sent parts of the propellers recovered from the Britain-Norman Islander to their manufacturers in the States. He's hoping analysis will reveal the mode of the propellers at the time of the impact. DSIR tests on the exhaust system have so far failed to establish whether both engines were operating.
Wintry early morning conditions today provided a few headaches for drivers on Dunedin's northern motorway. As John McDermott reports, the trouble stemmed from a nasty combination of snow and ice.
There just may have been the odd swear word mixed in with the whir of burning tyres as man and nature collided head-on this morning. The road was a lot worse than it looked, as the drivers of the big rigs quickly discovered. Last night's snow had become treacherous with the frost, and the bigger and heavier the vehicle, the worse the problem. The big dip was the spot that was catching them out. It's thought as many as 20 of the big trucks ran into trouble. And their problems soon became those of the ordinary motorists who had to wait patiently in behind. It took until mid-morning to get things back to normal. Other southern highways were also affected by the cold snap, especially in the area west of Lumsden. But the only road to close was the one leading to Milford.
The face of cosmetic surgery was advanced in Dunedin today at a North Dunedin vet clinic. The operation was a nose job. The patient was a sitting duck. Here's Kim Hurring with a quacker of a story.
Life was going just swimmingly for Daisy and the other ducks down at the pond when one day someone came along and shot off her bottom lip. Imagine the embarrassment, suddenly an ugly duckling. But Daisy wasn't about to be called a chinless wonder. She decided to become the first duck in the pond to have cosmetic surgery, and she wasn't going to just any old quack. A new plastic bill was moulded by a dental technician and installed in a tricky piece of surgery.
It's only a duck, and maybe it hasn't got a lot of value in itself, but we think that there's no reason why the technology's around. Why not give it a shot?
At last, something to bite on. No longer will she quack with a lisp. It's not sure how having a designer beak will affect her position in the pecking order or how she's going to pay the bill.
Still with birds, but on a more serious note, a decision on what charges will be laid against people alleged to have tried to smuggle keas out of New Zealand will be announced next week. The Department of Conservation says up to 3 people could face charges for the illegal capture and attempted exports of the birds to Asia. Don't live in Fiordland if you can't handle a few deep-seated earthquakes. That's the message from geologists after last evening's shake centred close to Haast. And it's about what we can expect from the area, as Michael Lynch reports.
The normally staid needles on Otago University's seismograph went quite haywire last night. They've done much the same thing at this time of year for the last 3 years, responding to the hefty, deep quakes that are the hallmark of Fiordland. Last night's effort was centred near to Haast. Locals described it as 5 seconds of noise like an express train, then a very sharp shake lasting only a second or two. Didn't do the damage of the Te Anau quake of Queen's Birthday weekend 2 years ago, when the Milford Road was blocked, and a Te Anau man had his boat swallowed up, then spat out by the surging lake. It's small consolation to the locals, but Fiordland's a fascinating area geologically. The Australian tectonic plate slides under the Pacific plate, and the tail of the Alpine fault bears down on the lot. It adds up to a hole in the sea off Haast and lots of earthquakes.
If you're a betting man, would you put a bet on one St. June next year?
No. No, I wouldn't. At least I wouldn't let my colleagues know I did, put it that way.
But if it's any consolation, apart from Fiordland, we get off pretty lightly in the south in the earthquake stakes.
Skateboarding. Is it a dangerous problem or just plain good fun? Your age will probably determine how you answer that question, because if you hadn't already noticed, you've got to be young to skateboard. Mark Price has been trying to find out what it's like to be young and in love with a flat piece of wood on 4 wheels.
Skateboarding, it's a fad that's been and gone and come back again. It's fashionable, it's fun, they say, but it can be dangerous.
And he went up over the bonnet and his feet and the skateboard, etc., went through the windscreen of the car. Now, he got out of that pretty easily and lightly, but it could have been tragic.
But such dangers don't seem to be registering with the young skateboard riders who use city pavements with style and daring.
The only dangerous thing is the drivers in the cars, see, because we can control our skateboards, but they can't control their cars.
Yeah, that's right. Just because it's got 4 wheels and you're standing on it, it doesn't mean it's any different to a bike or anything else.
One skateboarder has died this year up north. ACC says 8 out of 10 board riders can expect to be injured at some stage. But there's the other side of the skateboard coin, the danger to other footpath and road users.
It's a worry to older people, particularly elderly people, because they worry. They see these things coming at them on the footpath. The kids are quite skillful with the use of them, but one's only got to scoot away on them, and those skateboards can be quite lethal.
The City Council has a skateboarding bylaw designed to prevent board riders causing a nuisance on the footpaths. But how effective is it?
Totally ineffective, like a lot of the bylaws I think we have in the city, and until we do address that properly and seriously, I think it'll just continue. See, the kids don't know. If the kids aren't told that it's a danger and it's against the city bylaws, in fact, to scoot around on the footpaths with skateboards, then they're just going to keep doing it, and why not?
As for actual roads like Stewart Street, a skateboarder can weave through the traffic safe in the knowledge that he or she's not breaking the law. There is no law. Ministry of Transport doesn't see skateboarding as one of its bigger problems, but it's all in favour of places like Wheelcool, the city's first commercial attempt at providing what the board riders want. The city's paid for skateboard facilities in the past. The beauty of Wheelcool is that users pay at a rate of $1 an hour, and compared with being out on the roads, it's relatively user-friendly. But the Octagon's also one of the in-places to skateboard.
Yeah, it was. We wrecked it.
How's that?
Look at the bricks. Look at that down there. It's just a mess.
That was done by skateboarding?
Yeah. So these things here, with the person on top of them going like that, makes a bit of a mess.
We want kids to enjoy themselves in the city, and we want them to enjoy skateboarding, but perhaps not in the city, right? Not here in the Octagon, because that's not a safe environment. It's too prone to accidents for themselves and to other people using the streets.
The hard part is getting that message through.
Yeah, even if they did ban it from the streets, we'd still do it, I reckon.
Yeah, because no matter what some police officer commands or what any sign reads, there will always be skateboarders and there will always be skateboarding. That's a simple fact.
Food for thought, really, isn't it? We'll be back tomorrow night. Good night.